In this video, I'm going to show you how to acquire so many clients that you won't know what to do with them. So if you're a software engineer who's either freelancing, has their own agency, or has their own SaaS and is looking to acquire clients, this is the only video you need to watch to get as many clients as you could possibly dream of. In the last week alone, my company made $164,000. So trust me, when it comes to being a software engineer and knowing how to acquire clients for a tech business, I'm your guy. And I know there's a lot of fluff on YouTube, different YouTubers talking about stuff they don't even know, they don't show their numbers. And thus, I want to prove to you that when it comes to software engineers on YouTube, you won't find somebody doing better numbers than me. And let me show you, this is my Stripe account. Let me see if it focuses. And let me refresh it right now. You can see 164,000 in the last 7 days. And let me show you today. You can see the update right at the bottom, just updated. And today, $25,000 just today alone. And with that, I don't want to waste any more time. So let's get right into it. So first and foremost, when it comes to actually acquiring clients, I'm going to assume that you've already followed the problem, pain point, solution, and MVP. So you should be at a stage where you have a minimum viable product. You look for a problem. Based on a problem, you found a pain point. Now from the pain point, you create a solution, and then the solution is in a minimum viable product state. And now, to actually reach out to people and acquire clients, we need to first understand the 4 leverages that we can use to do so. Now, right off the bat, as software engineers, one of these will be more evident than the others, and that is, of course, code leverage. Outside of code leverage, we have labor leverage, which is in the name. It's essentially hiring folks, right? Capital leverage, which is, once again, money, and media leverage, which is in the form of content, so the one you're consuming right now. Ideally, you would want to have all 4 of these leverages, but at the bare minimum, we at least want to have one. And we'll use this leverage to actually reach out to the individuals that we need to reach out to. So for example, code leverage, we can use ChatGPT to help us with reaching out, whether we're going to be using cold emails, cold DMs, whatever the case, right? Labor leverage, we can enlist other folks to help us send out these emails, send out these DMs, get in contact with more people. Same with the capital leverage, right? We can either buy software to do it for us, or we can buy other people to do it for us, right? And of course, media leverage, we can create content to do it for us. So we'll talk about all the different leverages and how they'll help us. But first and foremost, before we dive into full-blown client acquisition, we need to first focus on 2 key portions of client acquisition. And that is reaching out to immediate strangers and our network. So first and foremost, we want to consider our network. So this can be our friends, this can be our family, right? This can also be our neighbors. This can also be our coworkers. This can also be any classmates that we might have had, any alumni that we know, any other coworkers, managers, whatever the case. Anybody that is really in our network that they can either A, be a client themselves, or possibly refer another person to be our client, we want to reach out to them. The same thing as well for strangers. You might ask, okay, but how do I find strangers that will be the ideal client? There's a couple ways you can do so, right? For example, if you have a B2B offer, right, you can either use Apollo.io to literally search for the industry, the amount of money it's making, the number of employees, the location, and so on and so forth, to find the businesses that are your ideal client, right? Whether they need to be using a specific software, whatever the case, doesn't really matter. Or you could just use your local businesses as an example. Local businesses. And of course, if you have a B2C offer, right? Once again, look at the local scene. Neighbors, people in your gym, people in restaurants, anywhere really. But either way, you now have a way to reach both strangers as well as people in your network. As to how we're actually going to be reaching out to them, it's mainly through 3 ways: cold email, cold DMs, and prospecting. Now, when it comes to prospecting, I mean cold text, cold calls, warm text, warm calls, meeting people in person. Essentially, prospecting is more so doing everything else outside of cold emails and cold DMs, right? So meeting them in person, talking with them, engaging with them. But there's really these 3 main ways of doing so, right, that are, I guess, the most popularized. And the key here is whenever you're reaching out with, be it a stranger, be it a person from your network, The key for us, the reason why we're reaching out, is for us to validate our offer. I'll get into why we want to validate our offer later, why we're not, focusing on it much later on. We're trying to validate it so early on. But the key aspect here is for us to validate our offer, meaning for us to actually validate that our solution solves not only the pain point, but also the problem is worth solving. So the most important thing here that we need to worry about isn't necessarily what do I type in my cold email, what template should I use. You'll see a lot of cold email gurus or cold DM gurus talking about have this specific template, have this here, talk about this. None of that matters. Let me tell you something. If you actually have a good solution for a good problem, you can write gibberish, but as long as somebody reads it, as long as somebody actually sees the solution you're offering to the problem, as long as it's a good solution, you got nothing to worry about. So the most important thing when it comes to anything cold, right, especially if you're reaching out to strangers, network, they'll essentially look at whatever you send them because they're in your network. But when it comes to strangers, when they don't know you, the most important thing you need to focus on is for them to first take a look at it, right? So the type of hook you're going to have to grab their attention for them to even click and open that email in the first place. So we talked about the leverages you can use here. Since we're software engineers, we're most familiar with code leverage. I would highly recommend using ChatGPT to help you with sending out cold emails, cold DMs, whatever the case. But first and foremost, it's not necessarily content of the email that matters. It's getting their actual attention initially. So the number one thing you want to focus on when you're sending anything cold or anything to strangers is remind them of the pain. Okay? You don't want to create pain, but you want to remind them of the pain such that you can offer them a solution, and as such intrigue them into actually looking at the email you have, right? Now there are a lot of different ways you can do this, right? One of my favorite ways that I actually did it is I would call businesses and tell them, hey, like your competitor is actually doing this X, Y, and Z, right? And what that does, it's the pain point of them having that same problem, another pain point of their competitor being ahead of them, right? And of course the third point here, which is I have a solution for you. So I would either leave a voicemail or just give them a quick call, and within 1 or 2 sentences, I would have their immediate attention. Because the second they heard, oh, okay, I have this problem. Wait a minute, my competitor's ahead of me because I already solved this problem, and there is actually a solution to this problem. That's 3 things I instantly knock out of the park, right? And the same thing applies to the DM, same thing applies to the cold emails. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but the most important thing is for you to have a good hook to capture their attention, especially when it comes to cold stuff, right? If it's warm stuff with your network, you don't have to worry about that, right? Because you know off the bat, they're just going to take a look at it, right? They know you. And when it comes to the network stuff, when you're reaching out to your network, what you can do, whereas you can't really do so for the strangers, is ask for referrals. Ask your network to actually refer other people that they might know. Maybe a friend of a friend, maybe a family friend has a business and they might know other business owners. Ask them to refer them to you if they're actually a target client. And of course, you can do a joint venture. So you can do a partnership. If, let's say, you're a SaaS and you're solving one problem, but you can potentially partner with maybe a service-based business to make your solution slightly better, then you can do that as well, right? You can form a partnership. All in all, the first step is for us to reach out to our immediate network and strangers, other local businesses, or our ideal quote-unquote customers outright for us to validate our offer. Meaning to actually validate the problem that we're solving is a good problem to solve and that people actually want our solution and our solution is actually good. If our offer isn't validated, meaning nobody wants our solution, and then that means we got to go back and do this whole thing over again because we most likely messed up somewhere or the problem simply wasn't as important to solve. And as such, we continue going down the same exact path until we actually get our offer to be validated. And it doesn't matter how long this takes you, right? What problem you find, what pain point you decide to solve for, and the solution you came up with. Doesn't matter how many times you reiterate here. What's most important is for you to get to a point where your offer has finally been validated. And once it's been validated, then and only then can we actually start talking about posting organic content as well as looking at paid ads. Now, generally speaking, I don't like talking about ads especially when it comes to beginners, because I usually have a rule that if you're not making at least $15,000 a month with a specific offer, I wouldn't run ads to it. Of course, this is different if you have multiple years of experience, let's say like 10 years of experience in business, and you already have a good idea of what offers work and what offers don't work, then you can most likely just start up instantly from ads and scale it as fast as possible and test everything as fast as possible. But this isn't going to apply to everybody, and if you're a beginner, don't do ads, forget about ads for now, because you're just going to crash and burn. I would highly recommend for you, if you're going to start off, and you actually validate your offer, you start with the organic content round. But I just want to say the paid ads are still there. Now that we know our offer is validated, we can actually spend more time in setting up our organic content funnel. Now, organic content is actually what I call inbound marketing, and it's the only form of inbound marketing. For those of you who don't know what inbound marketing is, it's actually customer coming to you. Comes to you. So if you remember, in the first two outreaches we did here, we as the business owners, we ourselves were reaching out to potential customers, right? So it's the business going to the customer. But for the first time now, the customer is coming to us. It's inbound. And it's the same thing with paid ads, right? Except with paid ads, we pay money to do so. Whereas with organic content, it's free. We just make the content and people consume it and then come to our business. Okay. And this is why it's so important. Because inbound is so powerful, organic content takes a long time to actually set up. This inbound marketing takes a long time to set up, and it takes a long time to get it flowing and actually efficacious. That's why we want to make sure our offer is validated before we even consider spending any time on organic content. So guys, please do not miss this step and do not cross this line sooner than you need to. Please make sure your offer is validated using the two outreach methods that we talked about here. Now, once you've actually validated it and now you're going to do organic content, you have really 5 choices, right? Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok, or LinkedIn. There's some other maybe nuanced marketing platforms you can post on, but these are the big 5, so to call it. Initially, I would recommend starting off with one, the one that you actually consume the most content on. In my case, it's YouTube, right? So that's why I'm making these videos on YouTube. And over time, I'll move on to these all other platforms. But for now, since I consume the most YouTube, that's what also I make the most content on. And once I've chosen our platform that we're going to make the content on, you might be wondering, okay, but what type of content do I make? Great question. The type of content that we're going to make is going to do with our lead magnets. Now, if you don't know what a lead magnet is, that's completely fine. Let me explain. You can think of lead magnets, as the name suggests, right? It's a magnet and it drives leads to you, right? And a lead is essentially a prospect. A lead magnet is what I call a mini solution. So let me expand on this. Let's imagine that the main problem that we solved here, right, and the MVP that we have is a SaaS. A SaaS for, let's say, YouTube content creators, okay? And it's for content creators to make YouTube videos. And what this SaaS does, let's assume that you input, let's say, an idea, and then this SaaS takes in that idea, uses AI, and it gives us a whole video, including the thumbnail, right? Including the title, including the actual entire script, including the actual editing, and so on and so forth. And here, what we have is this one big problem, right? The big problem of creating YouTube videos. And here we have the mini problems underneath this big problem. Okay, to create a good YouTube video, I need a good thumbnail. I also need a good title. I need a good script. I need it to be edited well. Meaning, here in this big problem, so if I have big problem, and excuse my handwriting, using a mouse to do this, we have these mini problems. And as you might have already guessed, these mini solutions are for these mini problems. So let's say I have the SaaS, right, that helps content creators make YouTube videos. What I would do is all the actual content that I make on YouTube would have something to do with these mini problems. So one day maybe I can post how to make a great thumbnail, or what makes a great thumbnail, or 100 of the best performing thumbnails of all time. And that would be my lead magnet, right? I could maybe have an actual link them for them to click on, and it would either take them to the SaaS itself, right, where they can potentially have a free trial. It can take them to a newsletter where they can sign up and receive one of these guides for free, let's say the 100 best thumbnails, and then it can be a PDF document of that. But essentially what we want to have here is as many lead magnets as possible, right? Whenever we're posting this content on YouTube or any other platform, we want to have these lead magnets. With each video should solve the mini problem that exists in our big problem as a whole. because we can't necessarily make videos that talk about this big problem as a whole, because we need to actually dive deep into the specifics of it. We can make one video on thumbnails, we can make one video on titles, we can make one video on scripting, we can make one video on editing, and each of these videos, we can have links for these lead magnets, right? Be it documents, be it other videos, whatever the case, just any type of mini solution to these mini problems. And when they click those links, they can be taken to various places. They can either go directly to your product page to maybe get a free trial, right, like a demo. They can maybe go to an affiliate page where they can become affiliates for your product. They can go to a newsletter page where they put in their email, they send them to the newsletter, and they get that information, right? For example, a great example of a lead magnet would be if I tell you right after this video, sign up for my newsletter for you to get this Miro board, right? That would be my lead magnet. My lead magnet would be the actual solution, in this case, the Miro board, and this would be inbound marketing, right? You would sign up to the newsletter and you would get the lead magnet, and I would have your contact information, right? Or you could lead them to a free community and essentially go from there. Or if you have some other form of unique mechanism, it really depends on how you want to set it up. If it's like a phone call, if you want to maybe take them to Instagram, whatever the case, any other unique mechanism. But all in all, the most important thing here is, since this is a lead magnet, we want to use this to get leads, right? And what is a lead? It's the contact information of a prospect. This contact information can either be a name, an email, whatever the case, how much information you want to collect. What's important though is the information that you do collect that we use to qualify them, right? Because not all the people that come into this funnel, right, will be qualified. Some people will naturally churn, or they might not be congruent with the big problem that you're solving. Maybe one person needed help specifically with regards to this mini problem, and so they used the lead magnet, they got the mini solution for it, and that's it. They churned away. They don't need you any longer, right? However, most people, if they need help with this one, they might need help with this one as well as this one, which means at the end of the day, they will need help with this entire one, okay? And as a result, we use that to actually qualify our leads. And based on that, right, the leads can be taken to, for example, a website. And then from the websites, they will enter your actual sales funnel, where you turn the lead into an actual paying client. So this sales funnel can take numerous forms. If you're a SaaS, maybe it will be just straight up payment, right? They pay on the website and they get to use the SaaS quickly. If you have more so an agency model, like a custom software development agency, maybe your sales funnel would be something like filling out a questionnaire and then booking a call with, let's say, the team. And then after booking the call, you decide to onboard them, right? After they make the payment and so on and so forth. But the sales funnel is essentially you turning the actual qualified leads that come in, taking them through steps, and at the end, turning them into paid clients. So leads come in here, and then they exit out as cash, cold hard cash, right? And then it becomes your job to either have these folks be a one-time client or potentially a recurring client if you can actually retain them. So what did we end up doing here, right? If we take a look at the very beginning and try to understand the entire process once again, we have a problem. Based on the problem, we have a few pain points we need to address. So to solve those pain points, we create a solution in the form of a minimum viable product. And then for us to actually test this minimum viable product, we can use the 4 leverages to our essentially advantage. The media leverage, creating content; capital leverage, using money to either hire people, use co-leverage or labor, right? Capital leverage actually allows us to do all these other forms of leverages. We can do labor leverage, right? We can get more folks to join us, maybe partner up with somebody else to do this, right? Or we can just simply use co-leverage as well. Make things to automate ourselves, or use like something like ChatGPT to help us write the emails, or whatever the case, right? Just use all of these leverages if possible. If not, at least this one, because this is the one we're most familiar with as software engineers, to help us with all the other steps. And using these 4 leverages, right, we'll then reach out to 2 forms of people: our network, our immediate network, as well as strangers that fit our target customer. So the person who will have this problem. There's multiple ways we can find these people, right? Especially when it comes to strangers, we can use Apollo.io to find them, right? Or we can just look at local businesses if we have a B2B model. If we have a B2C model, then we might use other ways, right? We might use Instagram, we might use even in-person methods, talk to your neighbors, talk to, once again, friends and family, right, in this network over here, whatever the case. You simply want to actually look at the places where these people will be it Facebook groups, whatever. You'll have a better idea of it as you look at the problem, the pain point, and then the solution. But your goal is, once you've identified these people, right, your first few quote unquote target customers, you want to reach out to them in a form of cold email, in a form of cold DMs, or just simple prospecting, right? And the main point here is, if they're a stranger, don't care too much about the template or what it is you're saying. Number one thing you need to do is get them to first open the message, hook them such that they even see what it is you're offering, right? Don't worry too much about the template itself. You can use ChatGPT and it can give you pretty much like you're 90% of the way there with ChatGPT. The most important thing is for the hook, as well as for you to remind them, key thing, remind them of the pain point. Don't create pain for them, but remind them of the pain point they have and showcase your solution that can solve that pain point. This is also true for your network, right? You won't maybe send them any cold emails or cold DMs because you know them, but you'll still be able to prospect with them, meet them in person, talk with them, call them, and always remind them of the pain point if they are your target customer. If they're not your target customer, ask for referrals. Ask to see if they can refer you to other people. And if they can't refer you to other people, maybe there's a way you can partner with them, have a joint venture. Whatever the case, you are doing all of this to validate your offer. If you can't validate your offer, or excuse me, I should say, if the offer is not validated, it's not good enough, you go back and repeat the same thing all over again with a new problem, new pain point, and new solution, and of course, a new MVP. You do this as many times as it takes until your offer has been validated, until there's people actually paying money for it. Once you have a few people paying money for it, there could be a certain benchmark based on what it is you're doing. I would highly recommend at least $15,000 a month, right? From then, you can move on to paid ads and organic content. I would recommend starting off with organic content first and then moving on to paid ads. You'll start the organic content by posting on a platform that you consume the most content on, right? I say that because that's essentially the easiest way of doing it. You don't have to learn a new platform as a whole. If it's like a tie between two platforms, I would prioritize YouTube and Instagram, and then I would move on to X and LinkedIn, and then last but not least, I would consider TikTok, right? And then after that, what I would do is actually take a look at the lead magnets. We talked about lead magnets. They're many solutions to our many problems, right? So the big problem that we're solving for will have a lot of many problems that we have to address. And what we want to do is create free solutions, right? These many solutions for these many problems. And the main goal for these many solutions is to lead these folks to either a newsletter, an affiliate, a product page, a community, or some other unique mechanism to get their contact information. That's the most important thing here, because these are actual prospects who showed interest. We want to get their contact information to qualify them. And we'll know if they're qualified if they come to the website and actually enter our sales funnel, right? So if everything goes well, they enter our sales funnel, they should come out at the other end by becoming a paid customer. And then it's your job to turn them from a one-time client to a recurring client. But if you follow this down to the T, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to make at least $100,000 a month using this strategy. Trust me, if you do this, right? If you do this wholeheartedly and disciplined every single day, reach out to at least, let's say, 100 people, you can work backwards from it, right? What I recommend doing is, let's say you want to make $100,000 a month, right? And then for you, that's going to require, let's say, your SaaS that you're doing, it's $100 a month, right? So $100 a month. That's going to require you to actually sell 1,000 units a month, right? If it's going to require you to sell 1,000 units a month, right? And you sell 1,000 units for every, let's say, 100,000 people that show up on your website, right? Meaning you actually have a 1 in 100 chance, right? So for every 100 people that show up on your website, you sell one, right? Then that means you need 100,000 people to show up on your website. For 100,000 people that show up on your website, let's say for every 5 views you get on your videos, right? You get one person to show up on your website, then you need to get 500,000 views on your videos. Now, of course, this is just a rough estimate, but at least you can work backwards. Now you can understand, okay, if I want to make $100,000 a month, I need to get 500,000 views on my videos. You can also do this another way. Let's say your goal is something a lot more high ticket. You have a B2B offer. You want to make 100K, right? It's a B2B offer, and you need to close, let's say, 20 people because you're selling it for $5,000, right? For you to close 20 people, you know that on average, when you reach out to, let's say, 4 people, you at least close one, right? Your immediate network, let's say, or even strangers reaching out to. Well, if that's the case, then you need to, right? If you close one for every 4, and you need to close 20 people, then you need to reach out to 80 folks, right? And then that's your math. Now you can work backwards. And with that, if you actually follow this to the T, stay disciplined and consistent, and do this every single day, there's no reason why you won't be able to make at least $100,000 a month. If you actually follow this to the T and make sure that your offer has been validated, I would recommend at least about $10,000 to $15,000 a month before you start spending time on creating organic content, as well as looking into paid ads. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, at least somewhat. And as always, thank you for watching.